we are a traditional chartered quantity surveying practice, and that's our bread and butter, and it always will be our bread and butter. But I suppose one of the good aspects of my experience when I moved to the CBRE side of Turner and Townsend was that I got that client side working across. But I suppose as a business owner too, especially in the fit out game, as soon as you're appointed on a project, you're saying, right, this will end in 6 months, 12 months, and I need to try and find a replacement, a next one. And that next one is only replacing the one that so like you could have a contractor there with 100 million turnover, making a 1% profit for the amount of risk that they take on. You know, it's such a fine line between being profitable, some bit of profit, and, you know, one bad job could sink that contractor. It's not just the contractor, they could have a supply chain of maybe 20 subbies on a job. The ripple effect of an insolvency is just devastating. And I definitely think how we procure construction in this country needs to be seriously looked at, because procurement, as I said, is a race to the bottom. It's pitting four people against each other, and they all know what it's going to boil down to. But if you can protect margins and if you can apportion risk appropriately, then I think a lot of the problems of insolvencies, not all of them, but it would go a long way. The issue I'm hearing from the supply chain is that retentions are, once they're given back to the main contract, they're not being passed down. Retentions are either 3% or 5% of the contract sum. Contractors are working on margins of less than that, so the retention being held is greater than the margin the contractor is making on that project. So that doesn't sound right to me either. It needs to be from the main players in the industry, the big tier one contractors, the tier one consultants. Personally, I think they need to come together and start to say, look, we're doing this all wrong. It's chasing turnover, and it's chasing market share, and it's chasing stuff. And if you keep chasing, it's eventually you're spinning too many plates, and they're all going to drop, and it's going to be catastrophic. But they don't last long. There's no longevity in that.
Just ego, and that might sound polarizing, but it actually is it's egos from the top that want that market share, and they want that revenue because of what that can, the name they can bring to themselves. Damien, welcome to SQFT-Stories.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no troubles. I'm glad we got this one locked in. My podcast is evolving a little bit anyway, so I'm glad to have you on, someone who's like more specialist around a niche area and industry.
Yeah.
Because I've recorded a lot with sort of like fit out owners and design and build owners. So this one's gonna be really interesting for me to dive into your brain, I suppose.
Yeah, well, hopefully the listeners find it interesting as well.
But traditionally, I always like to kind of start at the start. So can you give us an idea of sort of like how you made your way into, because I know you mentioned before you were sort of like a surveyor by trade, quantity surveyor. So give us an idea of how you made your way into that.
Well, I suppose when I was finishing school back in the early 2000s, you know, as a 17, 18-year-old, I hadn't a clue what I wanted to do.
No one knows, do they, at that age?
They don't, and it's a lot of pressure to put on a kid who's no experience, maybe bar a summer job, as to what the world of work is about or what a career is about.
And that really does set the trajectory of, majority of the time, sets the trajectory of where you will end up in the future.
Exactly.
Is that just sole decision then and there?
Yeah, and I suppose
to an extent, I suppose.
To an extent, and I suppose it has changed, I suppose, in modern times where people's careers pivot and they move industries and things like that. But I suppose as I was coming out of school in the early 2000s, Ireland was undergoing, I'm obviously from Ireland originally, it was undergoing an economic boom. We called it the Celtic Tiger at the time, and it sort of lasted from 1995 to the global financial crisis. So 2002, I think, when I finished school, it was probably at the peak of it, and what was driving that was the construction industry. There was houses, apartments, shopping centres being built on every free square inch of Ireland at the time, and like most of my colleagues at school, they were all heading into the construction industry, whether that be through the trades. There's a lot of electricians, carpenters, blocklayers, etc., and then other guys then who were going off to university to study engineering, surveying, construction management, etc. So I sort of was a bit of a sheep, and I followed suit because I didn't really know what else to do. So I actually started off doing general practice surveying. So I was working and studying. I enjoyed it, but it was a bit salesy and wasn't really for me. But I stuck it out for about 4 years, got my qualification. Then when I was about 22, I went travelling.
As everyone always does.
As everyone does. Asia to begin with. Ended up in Australia and then did a stint in the US and New York. So I was about 2 years away at the time, working in the construction industry. Coming back to Ireland, it coincided with the crash. And I knew that I didn't want to go back into general practice surveying, but I did fancy quantity surveying. So I went back, did a degree in quantity surveying and sort of worked while I was studying my degree.
Just for the listeners, I suppose, can you give us a quick description of the difference between the quantity surveying and general practice?
Well, general practice surveyor is more your agency type surveying. So it's sales, it's leases of residential and commercial property generally. Quantity surveying then obviously is you're the commercial and cost manager of construction projects.
Yeah. Okay. So once you kind of, decided that the general practice wasn't for you, you went into the quantity surveying side, the dark side, I suppose.
Yeah.
So
some would say.
Yeah, some would say, I suppose. So give us an idea of sort of like how your journey and trajectory went from there.
So as I said, I did my degree and I was sort of working in Ireland as I was doing my degree, finished my degree. There were still no jobs about. Ireland was hit quite hard during that economic recession. So came to London. On the boat from Ireland, my wife jokes at me, "You came across in the spud boat with your bags," and I said, "Yeah, I did." So I landed in Euston Station, and that was that. Settled into London really quickly. I had a job lined up when I came here. It was with a small family-owned QS practice based just off Tottenham Court Road in the West End of London. And it was great. It was great for me because I think if I'd went to a larger practice at the time, I could have been overwhelmed, you know what I mean? So it was very good. There was maybe about 10 of us working there, a lot of experienced guys, a couple of us then sort of in our 20s. Got chartered quite quickly with the RICS. So spent a couple of years there. Then I moved on to a sort of a larger practice called Gardner and Theobald. I had an opportunity to work on the Google HQ that's still being built.
Yeah, still going.
It's still going on. Yeah,
never-ending project.
Never-ending project. Yeah. The consultants love it because they're getting paid for the last 10 years. But
client doesn't.
And the contractors as well.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. So I gave a couple of years on that project, maybe about 3 years, and my role sort of came to a natural end. And this is where Colin came into my life. I had met Colin, who's my business partner. I met him at an industry event, and we sort of hit it off. And Colin was a director at Turner and Townsend at the time, and Colin recruited me into T&T. And to be honest, it was the best move I ever made.
How come?
Yeah, it was just like T&T have, say, in the last 20 years, experienced phenomenal growth. And driven by some really good industry, I would call them titans. And I just felt when I got in there, you're sitting amongst these people every day, you're learning from them, you're listening to them, they're pushing you. There's what I felt. Yeah, it's the best way to learn. And what I felt at T&T was they'd give you as much responsibility as what you wanted. Do you know what I mean? The work was hard, it was difficult, it was long hours, but it was an absolutely fantastic learning experience for me. And Colin was my line manager for most of that. So as the years went by, sort of into 2021, it was obviously well documented that CBRE bought a large stake in Turner and Townsend. And at that point, I moved to the CBRE side of the business to work pure client side, commercial management. First client was an investment bank. So I was looking after their EMEA portfolio, Europe, Middle East and Africa. And that was a different experience that I wanted to have after being out delivering corporate fit out refurbishment projects for a number of years beforehand. And about a year or so before that, Colin went and did his own thing. He got an opportunity to work somewhere else, but we remained good friends and stayed in touch. And probably about 2024, we started getting itchy feet. We were sort of at the stage in our lives where, you know, what's next for us?
Yeah.
And we started having conversations in that summer of 2024, and sort of by late 24, we sort of said, let's go for it.
Set yourselves up.
Set ourselves up. Colin was ready to go before me.
He was giving you the nudge, was he?
Well, the road he was at was sort of coming to its natural conclusion. We had just had our second child in September 2024, and I had a couple of other commitments at work, so I sort of waited till Colin set the business up around December 24, January 25, and I managed to join him around April then that year. So we're quite new. We're just over a year old, but happy with the decision and happy with how it's going so far. So
just to jump back, so you went from sort of like the CBRE side of TNT, and then you said you're working client side with the. So give us an idea of something that I want to touch on today was like sort of client. Obviously, you were working client side, so you're obviously engaging with contractors early on, I suppose. Yeah,
I suppose the role as what we call ourselves PQS, PQSs. Consultant QSs, that's my background. So what we would do is sort of work with clients from early doors, say when a project is at feasibility stage, and we'd sort of work with them doing early budget setting. Now it might be, look, we want to fit out a building, it's 100,000 square foot, 50,000, whatever it may be, it's a Cat B fit out. It'll be a mix of space. We don't know what it is, how much. Yeah. And we'd sort of use our intelligence to come up with what we think would be given the sector maybe and the mix of space that the building will occupy. We'd come up with a reasonable budget.
So you wouldn't really engage with the contractor that early to budget price?
No. We'd base it on our own internal data and our own internal experience and on previous projects, and maybe any nuances or quirks that the client wants in terms of amenity spaces. You see a lot of, I suppose, wellness spaces now coming into offices.
Yeah, we're doing one at the moment. Well, actually, we're fitting out a space at the moment for a client, and they've got a like yoga studio area in one corner. And there's a lot of emphasis on that area as well. It's almost like a section of the budget that wouldn't really be spent on that area is being spent on that area. I've noticed that change quite a lot in the last.
And I think that's come since COVID, and it's the return to office, and there's a war on talent, you know what I mean? And everybody's looking across the road at what their competitors are doing. They're trying to attract talent into the business, retain talent. So you need to provide more than just a desk and a chair.
And I feel like talent, it's too easy for talent to flick between different companies nowadays.
Well, I suppose that's the mentality of the generation that's coming up behind us is, you know, I don't know, I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but I think it's the TikTok generation, I call them, where it's instant. They want instant things.
Instant gratification, they call it.
Instant gratification.
And also nowadays, and no matter what part of your life you're in, there's so many different options to do different things nowadays. Like it's so easy to, you know, if you want to find a new job, it's so easy to just go on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
I'm leaving, here's my experience, can I get a job? Yeah, of course you can. Come for an interview tomorrow and then you're in the door.
That's it. And you start to see a lot of that generation. They spend maybe 2 years at a company, move 2 years, move, whether that's for money, new experiences, job titles or whatever. So there is a real, and a lot of the clients that I've historically worked for, you know, I'm talking about banks, tech companies, where big companies where they invest a lot in hiring in talent straight out of uni, spending 2 or 3 years on a graduate program, investing in them. They don't want them to leave and go to a competitor after that investment. So I think a lot of the thinking behind the office now is, you know, it's the food offering, it's the amenities, it's the free coffee.
I was speaking to someone again the other day about this, or was I listening to a podcast? Can't remember what it was, but that they literally said that they joined a company because the coffee that they give that they could get there was good coffee and it was free, so it was saving them like £3 a day.
I believe it. You know what I mean? And it's
and it's fair enough, I suppose, isn't it? Because if you've got like two companies who want to hire you in the same location, it's not too much different travel-wise and money-wise. Those things are the things that
But it's the
differentiators,
little perks. It's the coffees, or it's the subsidised lunches, or it's, there's gyms and yoga classes, so you're not paying your gym subscription. It's the flexible working hours. It's once you do your hours, come in when you want, leave when you want. You're missing peak commuting hours, especially in London. So you're seeing a lot of that, and a lot of that thinking in office design at the minute. Then obviously you've individuals then who may be neurodiverse or have an autism, and it's designing an office to support those people and make sure that they're comfortable in their surroundings and that they can do the work that they're employed to do.
No, you're right, definitely. Just to jump back then, so a couple of things, a couple of questions that came to mind. One of them was, so when you were, I suppose you do now, but specifically when you're back on CBRE side of TNT, like you were saying, what were like common pain points you found clients would come up with whilst you were sort of with early engagement with them?
Pain points, I suppose, when I was on that side of things, when I sort of moved to the CB, I was looking after a regional portfolio, looking across maybe you could be spending up to 100 million a year on a capital plan across their EMEA portfolio. So it's, how do you coordinate the delivery of maybe 50, 60, 70 projects concurrently across a region, multiple different languages, multiple different contracts, multiple different ways of procuring construction, multiple different ways of how consultants design, multiple different ways of how supply chain is managed. So that was the real challenge for us. It's how do you deliver that in the most efficient manner across a global portfolio, making sure that money that's committed to be spent that year is spent, it isn't wasted. And as you know, construction doesn't follow a linear path.
Never
you
has.
have delays, you have problems, and it's almost having the knowledge and the foresight to look ahead. What are the likely problems that we're going to get? How do we
create contingency, I suppose?
Yeah, it is. There is the financial side, the commercial side of it is having that contingency pot, but you may, for example, have a lease break on a project in Berlin, and the client has to be out of there by a certain date, and their new building isn't ready. What happens? It's always asking the what if questions. What if this happens? What if that happens? So that's probably the biggest challenge when I was working on these client side portfolios, especially as I said, it was predominantly with investment banks, and it's you've traders that need to be trading. They can't have downtime. Those are all the challenges, and clients, I suppose, do need that experienced head. And it wasn't just me, I was part of a wider PMO, a program management office, so it was combining all of our knowledge into a strategy to deliver those projects.
So obviously that come to a natural end. Colin decided, or he was sort of like...
We were both, I wanted to do it too, Colin wanted to go, we were chatting, we were both going to do our own thing, and we just said, look, this is stupid. We know all the same people, more or less. We'd be competing with each other in the same market. He'd lose or I'd lose, or we'd both lose.
Yeah.
And it's easier when you have a partner. And I suppose Colin is stronger at a lot of things that I'm not, and I'm certainly stronger at things that Colin's not. So we have a good yin-yang, if you want to call it. I just think we combine really well. And all the years I've known Colin, I don't think we've ever had a crossword with each other. We've never fallen out. We've
other business partners.
So, yeah. Well, look, we're business partners now with just over a year, but yeah, it's going well, and we're really happy with the decision.
So give us an idea about the first year in business. Like, give us an idea of sort of like clients you work with. You have to name names, obviously. Like what you guys do, what you deliver.
Yeah.
And then we'll sort of lead our way onto topics afterwards.
Well, it was funny because just as you say that, going back to what I said earlier, Colin started the business while I was still employed. So and Colin would tell you he started on maybe the 1st of January, coming back after Christmas with a laptop, no work, and his dog sat beside him at home. So that's sort of how we got started. And luckily enough, quite early, when I say quite early, within a couple of months, we did start getting interest. We did start RFPs, or, you know, a lot of our work, say in the first year, I would say 80% of it has been negotiated. It has been through industry contacts. It is good, but I suppose what we do want to do now is, you know, get onto those RFP lists so that we're being recognised as the one of three or one of four. And that did happen in our first year, and sort of in the back end of 2025, we did start getting on more and more tender list or RFP lists. In terms of clients and project sizes, it's been a real mix. Without naming any names of clients that we're working with, we've sort of worked on projects as small as maybe 5 or 10,000 square foot up to 120,000 square foot. We just finished 120,000, I think, it PC'd in December. And then in December, we got appointed on a 90,000 square foot Cat A, Cat B refurb. And somewhere in between, Colin, one of our first clients actually was a global footwear brand. I won't say who, but quite a well-known footwear brand, and it's their new HQ in the West End of London. That's about 45,000 square foot.
Nice.
Then most of last year, I've been sort of spending maybe half my time working in a similar client-side role, looking after a global portfolio, in a commercial management role as well. So it's been a real mix of sort of projects, opportunities, clients. It's been great, but I suppose as a business owner too, especially in the fit-out game, as soon as you're appointed on a project, you're saying, right, this will end in 6 months, 12 months, and I need to try and find a replacement, a next one. And that next one is only replacing the one that you're so we're really keen on growth. So growth isn't just finding the one to replace one, it's finding other projects. I suppose we've been fortunate to bring our first full-time member of staff on board last year as a cost manager. Hugh's his name. So really good guy. He's on his APC journey with the RICS, so hopefully this year he'll get chartered, but he's doing really well for us so far. So
by the sounds of it, you guys sort of offer a few different niches within the industry, I suppose, and service offerings, I suppose.
Like, we are a traditional chartered quantity surveying practice, and that's our bread and butter, and it always will be our bread and butter. But I suppose one of the good aspects of my experience when I moved to the CBRE side of Turner and Townsend was that I got that client side working across either a regional or global portfolio. As I said, the many challenges and the many obstacles, and to do that role, I think you need to be quite experienced. You have to have had a track record of delivering projects, to have that foresight to look ahead as to how to set up and deliver a programme of work, to set a capital plan, to understand, is that capital plan realistic? Are you really going to spend that money?
On that scale as well.
On that scale.
You can't wing it. Well, I know we're all winging it anyway.
To a certain extent. But
yeah, you're right. You have to be heavily experienced.
You have to be heavily experienced. And I suppose the market that we're working in, there's probably not a lot of people who have that
experience, know how to be able to do it.
Know how to do it. So we see that as a bit of an avenue that we want to get a bit more into, because I think, like, London's a competitive market. There's a lot of competitors out there. There's a lot of PQSs out there, some large, some small, some startups like us, and we're all chasing the same projects, chasing the same clients. So I think you need to be a bit diversified in what you do and offer something different to the market that not everybody else is doing, because you put all your eggs into one basket, you're constantly going to be on that hamster wheel of chasing the next opportunity. So, and I enjoy the strategy of looking at a client's portfolio and how you deliver it, what are the issues you've had with in previous years. like going back to my pre-Ethos EQ days, I did spend 6 months with a client who couldn't spend their capital plan, and they couldn't spend it with a number of years, and I was brought in to sort of peel back why they were having those issues and to sort of write them a playbook, train their people on how to properly capital plan, how to set themselves up within regions and put proper structures in place to deliver successfully. So I can do that one-off consultancy piece, or I can sit with a client for 12 months, 2 years and manage their capital plan from a commercial perspective also.
Interesting question, actually, just off the back. I know you are more sort of like PQS, like you said, but just a question about QS in general. Something we spoke about on the phone and before we were on here was like the margins in the industry are such a huge topic of conversation all the time. They're tight. Why do you think they are so tight, and where do you think surveying could be the problem within it?
If you look at what's happened in our industry over the last number of years with the amount of insolvencies, it's an unacceptable amount. There's a myriad of reasons, but I think contractors take on a lot of risk. Like, you could have a contractor there with 100 million turnover making a 1% profit.
In my mind, I'm thinking like, that's crazy.
For the amount of risk that they take on. You know, it's such a fine line between, you know, being profitable, some bit of profit, and, you know, one bad job could sink that contractor. And it's not just the contractor. They could have a supply chain of maybe 20 subbies on a job. Like, the ripple effect of an insolvency is just devastating, and we've seen it with ISG. Was it in October 24?
That was a shock.
A massive shock. I couldn't
believe it.
Massive shock. There has obviously been a fallout, but I don't think it's been as bad. Anecdotally, it's what I'm hearing. I think a lot of their jobs and a lot of the supply chain, some of them have suffered and have went out of business, but I think fortunately a lot of their jobs have been picked up by other contractors, and those supply chain have been kept on and things like that. But it's going to continue to happen unless something happens. And I think it's this model of a race to the bottom, whether it's procuring contractors or even us as consultants. It's what we do has gone very commoditized. You know, you have, like, we're often in an RFP scenario, request for proposal, with 2-3 other QSs. And a lot of the time what we find is that client sees QS A, B, C and D, and it comes down to money.
Scroll to the bottom of the proposal.
Scroll to the bottom, And you're invited to bid for the job in the first instance, because they know you have the experience, they know you have the capacity, they know you could deliver the project. So a lot of the time, while a lot of people don't say it, it does boil down to fees. And like,
it's the same contractor side as well.
It's the same contractor side.
If they go on to, you know, if they know you as a contractor, client or PM or whoever's sort of an instructor, and you know they know you can deliver the job, they'll just scroll down to the bottom. As long as they trust all 3 or 4 in the room, it's just cost, unless there's some other
it's cost, I would say, a lot of the time, because there's a lot of projects too that are under budget pressure, and you know, a client, and I can understand it from their perspective too. If can we make the save, and maybe that saving now could pay for that bit of joinery that we really wanted, that was V'd out just before. And I get all that, you know what I mean. But you look at which contractor can meet the programme, because you're often dealing with a hard lease break. What's their methodology like?
Availability as well.
Their availability. What supply chain are they using for key packages? And I'd be more trying to be looking at the overall picture rather than the bottom number. And again, when you're in a competitive environment, and you know, in a tender scenario, you know who you're up against, and you know that your pencil is going to have to be sharpened. But where do you draw the line? At what point do you say, right, I can't go below this because it's too much risk. I'm making minute margin.
It's not worth doing.
It's not worth doing. And I think I don't like saying it, but like we're all in this to make money. You know what I mean?
It's a dirty word, profit.
And profit is a dirty word.
Money,
You took the words out of my mouth.
No one likes talking about it.
No.
But why is everyone in business? Like,
exactly.
Why do you work? To make money, to create experience, whatever everyone wants to do.
Yeah.
But as soon as the word profit gets brought up, everyone's like, you're making profit. You can't be doing that.
Yeah.
We need to make a profit, not you.
Yeah, and it's the risk, and I do feel for contractors, it's the risk that you take on a lump sum contract, and you for your best endeavours, you try and price out the risk as much as you can, but
you can only do that to an extent. That's the issue.
Do that to an extent, because you walk on site, as you know yourself, and you start opening up a building. You don't know what you miss things, and you don't know what you're going to find, and it's
and you got that battle then between client and PM or whoever sort of instructed you.
And it's especially under a D&B model where you're assuming a lot of that risk as well. It might be different under a traditional procurement route, but I definitely think how we procure construction in this country needs to be seriously looked at, because.
And what do you mean by that? As in, like, how do we procure at the moment, and why do you see that as a problem?
Well, procurement, as I said, is a race to the bottom. It's pitting four people against each other, and they all know what it's going to boil down to. But if you can protect margins, and if you can apportion risk appropriately, then I think a lot of the problems of insolvencies, not all of them, but it would go a long way. And
you're right. Definitely. And also I find as well, like you said there, protect margins for all supply chain involved.
Exactly.
Because if everyone's making a margin, then everyone wants to work, and then everyone will try and do a good job.
Yeah.
And if they know they're going to make a margin at the end of it, they will want to do another project with the same team. Whereas if they're not, then they won't want to do another project, or they won't even want to put their best foot forward as, say, on the project, because they're like, I know I'm not going to make a margin. I'm going to get squeezed at the bottom line.
Yeah.
Probably not going to get any work out of this person again.
Yeah.
Do I just save face? Do I relocate labour type thing and resources? And so there's a few different problems in that.
There is too, and it's like, obviously a head contract is held between the general contractor, the main contractor, and the client, and we'd have visibility of that head contract, and with visibility of retentions, what's being held, and when retentions are paid to that.
That's an interesting topic. What do you think about that, retentions?
The issue I'm hearing from the supply chain is that retentions are, once they're given back to the main contract, they're not being passed down. If you think about it, right, for a second, retentions are either 3% or 5% of the contract sum. Yeah. Contractors are working on margins of less than that, so the retention being held is greater than the margin the contractor is making on that project.
Yeah.
So that doesn't sound right to me either. Do you know what I mean?
So almost like that. My first thought process there is that they're almost using that as a bank loan for themselves to be able to potentially bankroll other projects. And
look, I don't want to second guess what a contractor is doing, but on the face of it,
probably happened before, I'd imagine.
Yeah. On the face of it, and to be honest, when you're working off margin so low, who could blame them? Because they have the cash flow project themselves, because they get paid in arrears every month. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's 30 days plus application, then it's another 30 days to get paid. Yeah. So to begin with, we're waiting 2 months to get the first payment into your bank. We have no visibility with how retentions is managed through a main contractor supply chain. We have no visibility if the terms and conditions in the head contract is gone back to back with your subbies contracts. And I hear a lot of noise from subbies about retentions not being paid and payments, and a lot of QSs getting the blame. Maybe that's contractors' QSs they're blaming, but certainly for us from a PQS side, we have no influence on that downward process. Like an interesting procurement model, and it's not used widely in this country, only maybe and say your larger mega projects is the construction management route, where you bring in your main contractor as a construction manager, and the client has contracts with each of the trades, and the construction manager, it's a clearly defined payment and profit for his role.
So they almost PM the project.
They're almost project managing. Yeah, it's construction management, so it's a de facto project manager, and the contracts then are held between the client and each of the supply chain.
Okay, that's interesting. I've never heard it's obviously been around, but I've never heard of that or experienced that. I suppose.
Yeah, and I've never worked on that model. It's not typically used in the world that we operate in, but in the US, that's one of the predominant models.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
I suppose that would assist supply chain because the thing is, as well as a subcontractor, you do think you have got the raw end of the stick, but the main contractor is still also bearing a lot of responsibility as well, because they're the ones, like you said, with the direct contract with the client.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know risk, risk gets passed down, but the main contractor does hold a lot of risk.
They do,
I suppose
of course,
that model as well, you're almost like mitigating risk.
Yeah, it's apportioning risk right across the project, and it's also to, like us as consultants, we see a number from a contractor. We don't know what that number is truly made up of. There's prelims and there's margin and there's risk and there's everything else, whereas under a construction management route, you have that full visibility of that trade package and how that number has been put together and what risk they are carrying, what profit they are carrying. So you're not paying profit and profit and profit and risk and risk and risk and prelims and prelims and prelims. So
contract values are less, I suppose. You are right. You lose the margin on margin.
Yeah. That domino effect of margin. But as I said, it's not popular in this country, and it's very.
I wonder why that is.
Well, I suppose it's what's the norm. Who's going to break away from the norm of doing things?
It's true.
And like little old me and Ethos EQ isn't going to change the industry. So I think it needs to be from the main players in the industry, the big tier one contractors, the tier one consultants. Personally, I think they need to come together and start to say, look, we're doing this all wrong. If we continue to go about delivering projects the way we deliver projects, we're going to continue the cycle of insolvencies. So unless something changes, nothing's going to change. So personally, I think the big players have to get in a room, agree a way of protecting margins, protecting or managing risk, dealing with, programs and I suppose unrealistic requests that some contractors are willing to bore versus others start saying, no, we'd step away from it. Unrealistic programs, as I said. A contractor could say, yeah, we'll meet that program to secure the job. No, they're never going to meet that program. They go on site, they bring in a couple of specialist surveyors. We need to create a scenario here where we can apply for an extension of time, and you're just firefighting from day one. You know what I mean? As consultants, as a client, and it's not an enjoyable experience. So I think a lot of that needs to be eradicated. But those are the behaviours that have been, I suppose, forced upon people by the nature of how construction procurement has been set up.
It's interesting. Another thing I want to touch on as well on that, whilst we're talking about sort of insolvencies and quantity surveyors, is I recorded with a gentleman called Paul Hemming who runs a software called C-Link, which assists with quantity surveyors. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah, I've heard of it, yeah.
And he kind of, I suppose, pinpointed one of the major reasons as to why quantity surveyors, I would say, assist insolvencies, but are kind of get the blame for the insolvencies, is because their commission is based off of how much money they can save at the end of a project, and that is only through, I suppose you call it subby bashing, but there's obviously a more technical term of it.
Yeah. But that's it. It's and obviously what he's referring to there is a contractor's QS, and we're PQS, we're client side, we're consultants QSs.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting you do that.
No, and we definitely don't. And look, I'm not saying, and anecdotally, you have heard about consultants beating up contractors and contractors QSs beating up consultants, and I don't like that word of beating up, but that's
what it is.
That's what it is. Let's call a spade a spade. I was
speaking to a site manager as well the other day who has worked with some of the, I won't name any names, but has worked with a lot of the bigger fit-out players in central London. And even not only the surveyors are, their commission is based off of that, but the project managers within the companies, the fit-out companies, their commission is based off variation. So they get percentage of variations that are put forward.
Yeah.
You're just creating a situation where someone's losing, like someone gaining is someone losing significantly.
Yeah, and that's where we come into play. It's making sure that you're appointing a contractor who's not going to, who's not buying a project, who's not going to have to be forced to look for variations, who's going to look to gain margin. They bring in their professional claims guys to walk site every day and to review programs and come up with scenarios and claims, and us then sitting on the client side then have to assess all of that. And it's just burning time and burning certainly our fees doing stuff that we don't want to be doing. So that's why it all goes back to buying the project right, getting your trusted contractor on board, making sure that if they're say they can meet a program or they can't meet a program, that it's justified and there's logic behind it. Looking at their methodology of how they're going to deliver the project. And again, it boils back to experience and, being on that side of the table where you can ask those challenging questions, or where you can say, talk me through how you're going to deliver this project. I like having this open book approach as to with their supply chain. Who have you gone to the market with? Can I see 4 of the sub-E quotes? How have you analysed it? Where are the gaps? How have you plugged those gaps? We have a robust cost plan on our end, or a pre-tender estimate. How does that stack up against what you're bringing forward as your contract sum?
Interesting.
So it's that's where clients get the value from an experienced QS. But I know we've been speaking a lot about contractors, but there is that downward pressure too on consultants in terms of fees. Our margins are getting low. We carry an overhead. We're going on to projects with a fixed fee as well. And you're trying to anticipate the challenges that you're going to have ahead. So again, that's what I said. That's why us as a smaller business, myself, Colin, we have that experience. Colin's 25 odd years, I'm 20 odd years in the industry, and combined together, and we're not carrying that massive overhead, so we can be very hands-on on projects, give our 100% to clients, and making sure that they're getting value for the fee that they're paying us, to give them that experienced advice and to ask those challenging questions.
How about, so obviously you kind of assist with budget setting early on, early stages, sorry. So budgets tend to spiral from once you've set the budgets, I suppose, with your clients, and then as it gets filtered further down the line, and then when you get into the project, budgets tend to spiral and get out of control. Like, why do you think that is?
They don't have a good cost consultant on board. So we work through all the design stages, depending on where we like to get appointed early, obviously, so we can control it from day dot. But through RIBA Stage 2, design team, they let their creative juices flow. We produce a cost plan at the end of it. If there's adjustments needed to the budget at that stage by revisiting the design, we do it at that stage. Then you move into RIBA Stage 3, which is develop design. Again, follow the same process, manage. I suppose at RIBA 2, that's sort of where you set your budget. So as you move into RIBA 3, we have change control management. So we'd have design development contingency, so that if client wants a change or the design gets a bit developed or more information is known at RIBA 3, might cost a bit of extra money, that you can draw down on that contingency fund in a controlled manner. It's signed off by the client. Get to the end of RIBA Stage 3. At that point, you might decide to go to the market on a 2-stage process or not. If you don't and you go down the traditional route, you do a detailed design at RIBA Stage 4. And at RIBA Stage 4, we'd have a pre-tender estimate, and our pre-tender estimate should be, in our opinion, what the project costs. We go out to the market, we get our 3-4 numbers back, we do an analysis of those tenders compared to our pre-tender estimate. And again, as I was saying, where's the gaps, where's the holes, what have they allowed for, what have they assumed? And we do our analysis, we do our engagement with the contractor, and we get to what we feel is a robust contract sum. Costs shouldn't spiral out of control, because going into construction, you have a robust contract sum. You have risk appropriately apportioned. You have a contractor who mightn't have been the cheapest, but it's not about being the cheapest. It's being about having as I said, their approach to delivering the project, their experience, who they have on the project, the methodology, the logistics, how they're going to manage snags, how they're going to manage change themselves. And we put in a formal change control, so a change is raised, it's assessed, it's analysed. We have contingency, or should have contingency, and that's how we pay for those changes as you move through the project. But it does start with getting the budget right at the beginning.
Your job.
That's our job, and it needs that experience head on projects to understand the challenges of each unique project and making those considerations as you move through the design, so that when you do get to tender the project, you know what the project should cost.
So in your, and I know you don't necessarily do a lot of it, but when you do engage with contractors, if and when you have, what do they tend to do wrong, or what things do you look out for with them in terms of like pros and cons of their offering, I suppose?
I like two-stage tendering when it's done right. And when I say done right, you buy the first stage. It's based on the experience of the team that the contractor is putting forward.
Yep.
It's based on the program that they're putting forward. It's based on their tender event schedule, how they're going to buy out the packages, who's in their supply chain. It depends on, their experience in delivering, and I think it's a personality thing as well. So how you need to have a team that gels well between a client's design team, the QS, the project manager, the contractor, their contracts manager, commercial manager, design manager, TSM, etc. So it's having that mix, and at that first stage tender, the contractor generally puts forward their prelims for the job and their declared overhead and profit.
Yeah.
Now, in my experience, that's at times where games start getting played, where, they might come in with fairly competitive prelims and competitive overheads and profit, because the second stage buyout is negotiated. They're out of competition.
Yeah.
And that's where,
they can start, not suggesting they can pile it back in.
They can pile it back in. But when it's done right, you have a proper tender event schedule, you have an open book policy, you're going to see how they're going to procure as they design out the stage 4. So I think that works well. You get that early contractor involvement. They start owning the design. They start having input on risk. They can get into site early to do any surveys do you know what I mean? So
that's quite important as well.
It's quite important, that early contractor involvement. When it's done right, you have them under a PCSA, pre-construction services agreement. During that time, you pay them a fee to do it. And as I said, when it's done right, it works really, really well, because everybody's bought in to what you're trying to deliver before you ink the final contract and you move on site.
Give us an idea of when it's done wrong, for instance. Not saying you've experienced it, but like, what does it look like when that's done wrong, early contractor engagement?
When it's done wrong, I suppose it's not really having it defined what you want the contractor to do during that PCSA period. You need to have a really defined pre-construction scope of services. So what you want the contractor to do, how you want them to do it, and why you want them to do it, and what's going to be the output, and how you manage that. Like, you have to give the contractor, I won't say a free rein, but a rein to do what they need to do, because you're buying that expertise. But it does need to be a really joined up process, and not like what I've seen in the past. It's a dump of risk onto the contractor. You're giving them something unrealistic to deliver. And the problems start beginning when contractors say yes to something, know that they shouldn't be saying yes to secure it, and we'll figure it out afterwards. And then it just becomes a battle. You're starting off on a back foot,
that's
on the wrong
problem,
footing, and it's the wrong way to go about it.
Contractors, and I sometimes fall foul of this as well, is like, we have a problem of saying no. I don't know what it is, but there's within reason, obviously, but like when there's a bit of faith in a project and you think you can potentially do it, you'll just say yes straight away.
Yeah.
Well, I do anyway, because I feel like I might be able to make it work.
Yeah.
We've just got a problem with saying no. I don't know what it is.
Well, I think you're doing it with the best intentions.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Not saying yes to something in your own head, the back of your head, it's screaming out, no, no, no.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
As long as there's a bit of faith that you feel like you genuinely can deliver it, I'll always say yes, because I don't know, that's just I believe in the team, or et cetera, et cetera. But
it's chasing turnover, and it's chasing market share, and it's chasing stuff. And if you keep chasing, it's eventually you're spinning too many plates, and they're all going to drop, and it's going to be catastrophic if that's your business model. It's
a business model of quite a few people in our industry, niche to fit out and design.
But they don't last long. There's no longevity in that.
It's just ego, and that might sound polarizing, but it actually is it's egos from the top that want that market share, and they want that revenue because of what that can the name they can bring to themselves in the market.
Like I can understand to a point a contractor, you know, if it was a new client or a new sector where they're just washing their face at the end of a project, and that's a project that'll enable them to, you know, and I can understand that. But when it's just constantly chasing, and as you say, maybe it's ego driven, but that doesn't last long. That business model doesn't work. You're going to get caught out eventually. You might get away with a while, but and likewise too, like if a consultant team has a bad experience with a contractor because they've bought a job and they're just chasing money right through, it's not a nice experience. And us, when we're looking at our pre-qualification list or our tender list next time around, you ain't going to be putting that contractor on it. Do you know what I mean? So it's
So what's the kind of plans with the business? So you guys have obviously been running for a year, over a year,
just over a year now,
and you said you've got a new recruit come in, so there's 3 of you, I suppose, now. So what's the kind of plans? I know what you offer now, but have you got any plans to offer anything? You know, even go over to the other side as well. I know you're more sort of PQS side, but have you got any plans to go further down the line in a project, or?
Yeah, well, we'd work on a project right throughout. Like we you know, through construction, we'd run it right to final account and agree to final account. But our value is that pre-construction bit, and traditionally, I would say 75-80% of our fee is in the pre-construction stage, and that's why it's vital for us to, you know, to get a contractor on board that you know is going to deliver. Because
sorry to interrupt, but just something just come to my mind there before I forget is you mentioned as well you carry it all the way through to final account as well. There's a discussion in that in terms of just the final account, because there's another sticky situation contractors come up against when subcontractors, I should say as well, maybe even main contractors as well, when the final account gets spoken about, and there's dark ways that people can do things when you get to the end. Like, give us your experience and sort of like opinion on those types of things. Yeah,
and like as I said to you before, generally because we work on fixed price lump sum traditional or design and build contracts, head contractors with main contractor client, the final account we agree is that account with the main contractor. Going back to what we said earlier, we don't have visibility of the agreements and final account agreements that they have with each of the trade contractors, and that's where anecdotally retentions get held, because half the retention is passed. We pass it back to that contractor at practical completion, and the remainder of it is at the end of the defects period, 12 months later. We have no visibility whether that main contractor has been passing those retentions back to back when he's received them. Also, during construction, what I typically do is agree a rolling final account, so that it's not something that's a battle at the end of a project. Yes, you're going to have variations. You agree those variations, or you agree most of them as you're going through the project. So you have that rolling final account, so you know what your number is, because we're cost reporting right through construction to our client, and we're forecasting what the final cost will be. The most efficient way to do that is to agree your variations and your change throughout construction with your contractor. So the final account is agreed at the end, there might be a bit of cleanup at the end, but that's typically how we'd approach it. Now, we have had scenarios where it was quite a large variation. You might be a bit apart on where you feel the number should be, and then that's takes a bit of work, and it might take a bit of work at the end of a project. But in terms of how that's passed down to supply chain, we don't get visibility, which is sort of going back to where the construction management model would work better, because we could be agreeing each of those packages in the same manner with the 15 to 20 trade contractors.
So there's visibility throughout as well.
It's visibility
you mentioned
throughout.
About the variations there, like the sums of the variations, but also that the nature of fit out, and I can only comment on fit out, but the nature of fit out is so quick and demanding that that variation may need to be done like now. And
that's it. It's a tight program, and you know what I mean. Oftentimes, variation would get instructed without the cost being agreed.
Exactly that. That's what's kind of.
But again, it's having that relationship between the PQS and the client's commercial manager. That yes, you do need to crack on with the variation. He might be waiting on some final costs. We might know what that number is, but we know that he's going to be fair with what he puts forward, and we'll assess it fairly. And once everything is done fair, and you give everybody a fair deal from our perspective, there shouldn't be any problems. And if you treat people with that level of respect and that fairness as you move through a project, I think it'll stand in good stead.
No, it's a good ethos to have. Sorry, I jumped in there, but the plans for sort of like you guys going forward, like where do you guys...
Plans for us going forward. We do have, there's obviously myself, Colin, we have one full-time employee at the minute, but we do have maybe about 3-4 freelance consultants that work with us at peak time. So again, it's we do want to grow. We do want to grow, but it is organic growth. Like that. We're not going to take on something that we're uncomfortable taking on. We're certainly not going to chase turnover or revenue or margin. We know what we're good at, and we know where we can add value, and it's building our business and growing our business based on those fundamentals, doing a good job for our clients, getting repeat work, getting referrals. And as I said to you, in our first year, I'd say 80% of our work has been negotiated. It has been referrals. And I think that boils back to our reputation in the market. Going forward into this year and next year, we do want to grow. We have ambitions of doubling in revenue, doubling in staff turnover year on year for the next couple of years. Obviously, a point will come where you can't continue to double, but we do want that steady growth and that organic growth. And it's bringing people into the business, whose, I suppose, personalities, outlook align with that of Colin and mine.
That's the most difficult thing, though, isn't it?
It's a difficult thing, and we spoke about the war on talent, and there's certainly war on talent in the industry we're in. But we do want to invest in people. We've a graduate development program. We're actively looking for graduates to join us this year. We want to bring them up through their APC program, get them chartered, give them real hands-on experience. And the beauty of coming working with us is that they'll be working with the owners of the business directly. You get a lot of younger professionals joining the industry, join a large organisation. They're in a cohort of maybe 100 graduates. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, or there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but we'd find that we'd be more value to a graduate in a smaller organisation where they're sitting beside us every day, they're running projects with us. They're not going to get that in a lot of other organisations. So it's trying to bring people up through the industry. It's bringing in people somewhere partway through their careers that are obviously of the similar ethos to myself and Colin to play on the word. And it's just bringing in really good people who enjoy what they're doing and will support our clients correctly.
Sounds positive. Damien, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
No, it's brilliant. It's actually been, I haven't had someone who's been more focused around the PQS side of things to pick your brains and to understand how you look at things has been interesting, to say the least. Really enjoyed our time, and I could probably chat for another hour. It's probably a bit nerdish of me to enjoy talking about QSing, but that's why you're in the industry, my friend. That's why I'm in the industry, exactly. Thanks so much for your time. Cheers, thank you. Thanks, Damien. Cheers.